Good morning, everybody. Welcome to our Everything You Need to Know About Land with our wonderful land expert, Miss Susan Abshire, here out of our Lake Nona team.
Yeah.
And we are excited. I know that there's going to be a lot more people jumping on. So many people are like, I'm coming. So I don't know if they'll be jumping in late in the meeting or coming on. You never can tell. I never know how many people are going to be in the room, how many people are going to be on Zoom. So yesterday I heard from about probably 25 people saying they're going to be here. So where are they? I don't know, but welcome to the world of real estate, right? So that's how it is. So as you guys keep coming on, first, we're going to start with a little kind of informal background. I'd like Susan to share a little bit about yourself. So Susan, you've been in Premier Sotheby's how long now?
Just over a year. I do mainly land and commercial. My background is I had 30 years. I was in land development, doing subdivisions, commercial, etc. I was on Osceola County's planning board for 8 years. And that's mainly my background in doing this.
And what made you decide to come to Sotheby's?
You.
I swear I didn't pay her to say that.
The support of you, Carrie. When we met, it was a good match, and I love the marketing. The marketing that we have is unbelievable, and in the marketing reports, being able to show to my clients, people are looking at your property. So when I do check in with them every other week, I'm able to say, because I don't want them to just have the email and me not actually physically talk to them. It makes them more comfortable that you can say you've had this many views on your vacant land. I have one lot right now that's extremely difficult to sell because it's in an HOA. I'm not allowed to put a sign in it, and I'm not allowed to put a sign on the lake where it is. So I'm very narrow on what I'm allowed to do on marketing it, but I'm able to show the owner, we are marketing your property, but the reports, just the marketing that we have available, and the name carries so much weight with a lot of clients. They like the prestige of dealing with our company.
And I have to say, most of the work you've done has been all off-market stuff that you have solicited.
Yes, most of it is.
Now, one other thing I do want to mention, just for you guys, I know you're aware, but so Premier Sotheby's, all of our marketing is for residential, and that includes all vacant land. So any piece of vacant land is going to go through the entire Sotheby's network. So it is going to go to the Juai, the Nikkei in Japan, the Financial Times in India. It's going to go all over. It's going to be printed in the Orlando Sentinel. I saw 2 of your beautiful lots, the $4 million one, another one for, I think it was 1.2 or something.
Yep.
Those were just in the Orlando Sentinel. It and the Nona Social.
Yes.
Because it's here in this area, St. Cloud, actually.
St. Cloud.
So all of that is going to get the same type of incredible exposure as a regular residential property would. The difference is commercial. Now, remember, Sotheby's does not recognize commercial. So in the commercial space, you have to do it a little differently. So sometimes, just so you're aware, we will go ahead and advertise a property, if possible, multiple ways. We may put it out commercial, and we may put it out as vacant land. So if it's a land parcel that is commercial and vacant land, we'll put it in both ways, vacant land and commercial, because we know we can go ahead and get it through Sotheby's as vacant land, but we also want to put it out as commercial, put it in LoopNet and all those things that you would do for commercial as well.
Yes, because I use both the LoopNet. I have my own account to where I pay a fee every month to have a featured property. Also, I use Proxy, which is another commercial, predominantly commercial, because a lot of commercial land people do not even look on the MLS. A lot of them do not belong to the MLS. They're strictly looking on LoopNet and Proxy for their properties.
Right, exactly. Wonderful. Well, you brought all sorts of goodies with you. So talk to us a little bit about the goodies you brought.
Anybody that really wants to get into doing vacant land in, say, commercial sites, this class is offered. I believe Aura does it. I know Oscar does it. This is a wonderful class. It gives you the basics on what commercial people are looking when they're looking for a site, what matters to them. It's not just location, it's traffic counts, zoning, etc. This is a wonderful class. If you have an opportunity to take it, I highly recommend it.
So it's real estate site selection. How long is the class?
It is a 2-day class.
Is it a designation?
It is a designation that you can work to. There's several classes that are packed together that
Okay.
you can earn, the designation. I've not gone for the designation because a lot of it involves farmlands,
Mhm.
etc. I am not in Florida. We do not have a lot of farmlands available in our area that are available for sale. Most of the things that are
Ocala.
available are being converted to subdivisions or commercial. There's just not a whole lot of people looking for orange groves, etc. in Osceola and Orange County. If they're looking at it to put a subdivision in.
So from your perspective, thank you so much for sharing that. That's a great piece of advice about taking, and you know me, I'm a huge proponent of education. So that's a great one. But if from your perspective, you go to see a piece of parcel of land,
Mhm.
what are some of the things that you're going to do differently? Obviously, we're going to do a regular CMA, right? If it's a regular residential property, when we're going to look at what the value is, what things have sold for, what the average days on market for, you know, these are the normal things we look for. But when you're going to a land, you're going to go see what are the other things you're checking in.
The first thing I do is I go into Osceola County or Orange County zoning. I can put in the address or the parcel number and it will tell me what the current zoning is. Then I go to the future land use maps to see what the future land use is on the property. It might currently be, say, agriculture, which is AC zoning, but its future land use is LDR, which is low density residential, 4 to 8 homes per acre. The property has more value as being LDR. So when you market the property, instead of marketing it as agriculture, you want to make sure that you let people know that it's future land use, because if it's future land use is stated, it's easy to get the zoning changed. If it is not, it's a more difficult process. But the value is density, at least in Osceola County, because we're the third fastest growing county in the United States at the moment. So a lot of the farmlands that are currently designated agriculture already are zoned, well, have future land use for low density residential. And that's where the difference is in pricing the property.
And if I'm not mistaken, I remember probably was back, I still had my Regents Realty. So this was probably back in 2014, 15. Osceola went through a huge zoning change where they went ahead and actually updated and revised all the future land use. Is that correct?
That is correct. All the counties, Osceola has got a very easy interactive zoning department that you can look at.
Can we go to the website?
Yeah, we can go to Osceola County zoning.
Okay, so I'm going to share the screen, guys, to make this easy for you. And let's take a look. Let's go together, because this is where the magic happens. So what's the website?
You can just put in Osceola County zoning department and it should pop up.
Osceola County zoning department.
Yeah.
Can do. All right.
There you go.
This first one.
Yep, zoning services should be, that's Kissimmee. Theirs is a little more difficult to use. In the city of St. Cloud, if you do anything in the city of St. Cloud, you're going to have to go in person because their website is
horrible.
horrible.
Oh, I was on there the day I wanted to shoot myself.
Oh, it is. It's
the
very
future
difficult.
land use map. What the heck? That thing is the worst.
Just go down and see them.
Couldn't even-
It's much easier.
It's like, listen, you're on your own. I had to tell the agent. I'm like, I'm done here. My work is over. Okay, so let's go to the future land use.
So we're in the zoning and we can go to.
Oh, you have the development codes.
Yes, we have the LDC.
Can we look at this? Because, you know, so many times agents will call me. I love this because I know everything, right? I hate to tell you guys, this is the worst secret. I really don't know everything. I know it's really disappointing. But sometimes there's these codes and I'm like, I don't know what that means. This is where you usually can find that.
This is where you can usually find it. And I brought some of the different zoning districts.
Okay, so let's take a quick peek here. So
you want to probably go into site design and development standards is where I go. That's where the tables are.
Site design. Okay, so I jump to
You can,
site design. Yeah.
there you go. This is going to have the different chapter 4.
Look at her. This is the beauty of knowing someone who knows their way around. I'm like searching, but you forget about St. Cloud. You'll never find it.
You'll never find it. If you have to work with St. Cloud, prepare yourself. And
For
please
torture.
keep in mind, unlike other city halls, they close at 4 o'clock.
I know.
So Just telling you guys, I've made it there at 4:05, thinking I had plenty of time.
And you don't.
No, you don't. They're closed.
Okay, so where are the actual codes in here?
You have to go through the whole thing. I'm
Oh
sorry.
my gosh, you have to go through the whole thing. Horrible.
It's got, let's see. I
Find
got the
exam-
tables with me.
Oh,
I brought the
that's, so
tables
she
with
brought
me.
the tables
We
with
can
her.
We can post them if we want
Oh,
to.
actually, yeah, let's do that. So
Uh,
hold on, they're probably down here, but you know what? I'm gonna stop the show for a second because she already made our life easy. She got the tables. So this is what you're gonna get to it. And what I'll do is I'll scan this in and send this to everybody. But these are the tables that tell you what all of the districts mean. And so what for example, an industrial district, IR, industrial restricted, IG, industrial general, a PD. Does anybody know what a PD? It's a PUD, right? Planned urban development. But what could that be used for?
Yes.
It depends. Density. Does anybody know what density is related to? Anybody?
How many units you can put on.
Correct. But now I'm going to share a nightmare story. We actually had a property that was in the middle of, oh gosh, it's over here by the airport, a huge area where it had huge density initially. But this parcel, which was like, I want to say it was 7 acres or something. It was pretty significant. And you would be like, this is going to be a huge parcel that we could sell, make a lot of money. Although some of it was wet. We thought, I think 5 acres, if I'm remembering properly, was about probably buildable. Except everything else had been built up around it. The density left on it was like 2. That's all you could build, 2 parcels.
Oh,
All density had already been given on all of the other parcels around it because it was part of the PUD. So they did not equally divvy out the density for the entire PUD. So what was left was 2 for 5 acres.
oh, that's horrible.
Yeah, so that owner, his land value just went from here to here.
I brought this with me also that we can share, and it's got each density, where you can be at. Say your AC 5 acres, what size building you can put on it, and it's got all of the different zoning types and what you can do with the zoning types. Osceola County does not do conditional use zoning hardly at all anymore. If you go for zoning in Osceola, yes, they're phasing it out. They do not want, because they don't want to worry about, say you bought a piece of property, say it's a welding shop, and they only had a conditional use zoning on it. When that person shuts down that shop, the zoning can be gone.
Right.
So they're trying to make it where it's permanent, to where there is no more
Because they're not
conditional
allowing
use.
grandfathering anymore.
Exactly.
Does everybody know what grandfathering is? So if you had a conditional use, if it was grandfathered, it doesn't matter if that's no longer in the plan. Hi, Gladys. Now you're always going to be able to have that welding
Always.
shop because it's grandfathered in, even though it's not in the plan of that development in that
Exactly.
area. So that's why they've gotten rid of the conditional.
That's
Mhm.
why they've gotten rid of it. But this zoning chart, if we can share that with everybody, this will
Yes.
help them to understand how dense you can put different properties.
Which is amazing. That's the other thing, guys. If you're dealing with a builder or anybody who wants to sell to a builder, the number one thing a builder needs to know is density.
Density.
How much can I build? Right? And it's not how much are they able to build, it's how much is the county going to allow them, or the city of, depending on where the property is located within. How much are they going to allow them to build?
And it's unique in Osceola County. Say you have 100 acres and 20 acres of it is wetlands.
Mm.
They base your density on the whole 100 acres.
It's
Yes.
terrible.
But people assume that it's cut out, but in Osceola County, it's not. And most builders are going to tell you that that property is wet and it is useless. Keep in mind, when they're doing density, that they're going to count that property.
Well, that might give them more density.
It does give them more density.
So that's actually not a bad thing. In Orange County, they do not count the wetlands.
Osceola County is unique.
Mhm. That's interesting.
Yes.
There's a parcel actually over here, it's by Lake Mary Jane area, where it was what, I think we looked at it, 20 some odd acres, but I think only 12 of it's buildable. Who's the air has it? They've had it for forever.
Yes.
Totally overpriced because the density is so low.
The density is everything on the price. The higher the density, especially when you're in the Narcoossee overlay, because Narcoossee is one of the few places that there is an overlay. Their zoning is enhanced compared to the
Can
rest
you
of the county.
explain that to people? Because I saw some looks.
I'm sorry. They have higher design standards than the rest of the county. You're going to be expected to put in more trails, more sidewalks. Your entranceway is going to be expected to be a higher design standard. You're going to have berms around the property. The landscaping is going to be different. It's just a higher level than the rest of the county. You have a higher standard that you're going to have to meet.
Now, Victoria asked, how often do they revise zoning in counties? Do you know?
Oh gosh,
It's like all the time.
they can revise it at any time they want to. All they have to do is bring it before the board and have the board vote on it, and they can revise it.
I would have to say, it also depends on how actively the area is growing. So for example, Windermere, there was a time I was constantly down at the county because we were building Windermere Winter Garden, and I was constantly fighting for things all the time. But I would say because you're practically built out in Windermere, I doubt that that's the case anymore. Like, what are you worried about zoning anymore? There's nothing left to really build. There's so few land available, especially for any kind of development. There's just it's not that much. But in an area like Osceola, where you have so much growth left, I'm imagining you're going to see a lot more changes to that.
We have, and you have to, I would highly recommend getting with it. If you're working with somebody and you find a piece of property that you are interested in, your client's interested in, if you're doing a zoning change, you need to be working with a lawyer and an engineer, and that is on your client side. Your client needs to pick them out. You can recommend different people. Personally, I use Jo Thacker all the time. She's with Nelson Mullins. She does the larger subdivisions, and this is all she's done is zoning changes, getting PUDs in, etc. And that's more on your client side working, but they're going to reach out to you. Lawyers will reach out to you with questions regarding the seller. The engineer will also reach out to you. Also in vacant land, we have testing done. You might have to have a phase 1, which is extremely simple. Would you like me to explain the phase 1?
Please explain the phase.
Phase 1. A phase 1 is basically a paper trail. They look at the property and they see what's been on the property. So say it's been a cow pasture for 100 years. The first thing they worry about with cow pastures is, and you will hear this, dipping bats, because we used to run our cattle through dipping bats with arsenic to kill the bugs in Florida. There are not that many dipping bats in Central Florida. They usually were community ones, and they shared them, and they would all drive the cattle to them. But that's the first question they're going to ask: is there a dipping bat? No, and you can spot them. They're very easy.
We couldn't probably spot them, but you could spot them. We go on dipping. What?
But what they're going to do, the first thing is going to see what the property was. I just had one. I'm doing a commercial lot. It's got a house on it. There's been a house there 50 years. So when they did the phase 1, they looked and they said, it's only been a house. There's never been anything else here. There's never been a business. So they're not going to look for any chemicals or anything that could be buried because it's only been a house. They might want to do soil borings to find out what is underneath the ground. It's a simple process. They send a rig out, they do the borings, and they do not leave holes. They repair what they did. But if you have to go to a phase 2, that's very intense. They are going to be doing a lot of testing. They're going to ask a lot of questions of your seller, what has been on the property, and they're going to be out on that site looking. Also, we have to worry about animals. If it's a large enough piece of property, they will do a species survey. Eagles, turtles.
Oh my gosh.
In Polk County, we have skanks.
What the heck is a skank?
It's a lizard type.
I mean, I know what I think of as a skank, but
it's a lizard. It's a lizard. And if you have those, that can shut down on what you're able to do with them because they're very endangered. Turtles, they will relocate.
Yes, but that is so costly and takes so much time.
$10,000 per turtle.
Yeah, I will tell you with Centerline, we were purchasing a large parcel right on Lake Toho. We had the parcel adjacent North Shores. It's the landing at North Shores.
Yes.
That was
parcel.
us. We were buying the part where actually, they have was not supposed to be all the transient people living there, but the the fish camp.
Yes, the fish camp.
They picketed us forever. We were taking away their homes. Oh yeah, it was fabulous. But we were the evil developer. Woo! Go center line. But we were purchasing that because we were going to put up these beautiful estate homes right on Lake Toho. It was going to be gorgeous. But we went into a phase 2. We went for the species and we found turtles. Notice that there's still the fish camp there. It would have cost so much money for us to relocate those turtles. It did not even make sense to go forward with that purchase. We ran away from that. We didn't look back.
And it can be very costly, but it depends on the location of the property. If the location is right, the density is right, they will go ahead and get it done. But you only have to worry about this on large parcels. Say anything over 10 acres, they're going to do something like that.
An Indian burial ground, you're dead in the water.
Oh, you're done.
Good, how are you?
Yeah, nothing can be done for an Indian burial
Nothing can
ground.
be done. You're done.
You're done. You just purchased a cemetery.
Yeah,
You're
you
out of luck.
purchased, it can be a park, your personal park.
Yeah, exactly.
You won't be able to build anything
Yeah.
on it. They will permit nothing.
Absolutely. And one thing I want you guys to, Carol, you came in person. Oh, I'm so glad you came in person.
Hi.
Carol, Susan,
Hi,
Susan,
Carol.
Carol. I don't think you're from that. So one thing I want you guys to all understand with the phases, first off and foremost, this is so important. Never, all say it with me, never be responsible for any of the due diligence.
Never, ever. That is your client's responsibility for it. You cannot take responsibility and you cannot make decisions for your client. You are simply an advisor.
Yes. And zoning, okay, you should not be involved in zoning
No.
changes. You should not be going down to the county and trying to put in for
No.
zoning changes. There are attorneys that handle zoning.
Attorneys and
We
engineers.
don't do that. And in some instances, I will tell you, we had a customer down in Miami. It was actually Coral Gables, and we were buying, you'll like this, a concha. Oh, yes, 8-on-8. And it was actually zoned for recreation. That was one of the land uses available. Okay, also was a strip club available. The only one, a billion other things, right? In a very industrial area, by the way. I'm just going to say that. It was not a really nice part. It was like on the outskirts of Coral Gables. But long story short, the only one of this long list that required a public hearing was the recreational. Strip club, fine, no problem. Don't need a public hearing. No, but you want to have a concha, you want to have a soccer field, you need to have a public hearing. So the seller would not give us an extension for the public hearing. Of course, I made my customer get an attorney. The seller had to decide, is she going to go ahead? They would give an extension, but not an extension on due diligence. So her money had to go hard, whether or not she was able to get the zoning change. She had to make that decision. This is the stuff that you have to make sure your customers are making the decision. You are not. And this is why you need the attorneys representing them, not you. Because if you're advising them and that comes up, that is a bad thing. She had, I think it was $150,000 or $250,000 deposit in on that. It was a $2.5 million property. That was not going to be pretty if she was going to walk away with that money. Long story short, she did go hard on the money. It got delayed because the public hearing got passed on, blah, blah, blah. Believe it or not, they actually passed it. They wanted to park over the strip club. So she ended up building it, but it had nothing to do with me. You have to step out of that. You cannot be part of that.
You cannot be, but you can point them to the right direction.
Mhm.
I've introduced people to different people in the zoning departments to have the conversations to where they know. But at the end of the day, I look at it, it's their money and they have to be responsible for their own money. And due diligence, you will deal with agents that do not understand what has to be done during due diligence. You have to find out if you can change the zoning. In a lot of projects I work with, it has to go all the way to site approval for the due diligence. Because in larger commercial ones, your due diligence can be as much as 180 days. Due diligence on it. Smaller parcels, 90 days is not unusual for this work, but it is up to the client and the people that they're working. And you can tell them, here's a list of engineers to work with. Here's a list of the lawyers that are all good. Are you working with somebody? Wonderful. Have them start their homework. because you can check before you sell it to make sure, but you cannot by any means file their zoning paper. You do not want to file their stuff. You don't want any part of that. You just want to be able to say, hey, Ann in zoning, I just want to double check on something. It looks like this is right on the map. You don't,
Yeah.
that's,
You could say future land use is this.
mhm.
Here you go. Do with this what you want to.
That's
You
why
can
they
give
have
them
either 90 or
180
180 days.
days.
to do
Yes.
the diligence.
Exactly. You give them the information and you let them do with it as they want to, but it is their decision. This is the number one area I see agents making big mistakes because they're trying to do too much
Mhm.
for their customer.
Mhm.
And that's a big mistake in land.
Like it's very important. Like a lawyer is a must.
A lawyer is a
Is a
must. And if you have somebody that you work with that specializes, you want a
Even
lawyer
better.
that specializes in real estate.
Yeah.
Because our transactions are different.
Mhm.
You don't want somebody that wears many hats, especially if you're dealing with a larger deal.
Mhm.
And another thing, a lot of times when you're dealing with developers, they're going to have different periods of when they'll make the deposits hard. So they may make some hard during a certain period of due diligence, but there may be a different period of due diligence. In the due diligence, it covers everything. It covers the soil, it covers the species, it covers the zoning, it covers everything. But because if you're trying to go through a zoning change, that could take 6 months. I mean, it could
That
take
could very
longer.
easily take 6 months.
So they may say, well, we'll be willing. So after they find this information, their fact finding mission, they may come back and say, listen, we want to extend due diligence, but we'll be willing to go hard on this much of our money. We'll put an additional amount down, but that money is going to be refundable if we don't get our zoning change. Those things all become negotiable. So as the agent, you need to be aware of that. That's the kind of thing that you can assist with. What you can't assist with is getting involved in the zoning
You
part.
cannot.
And, that's the stuff you can't get. Exactly.
It's up to them, and you just can remind them, your due diligence is up on this date. Have you done this, this, this? Not meaning that you do it. Have you, where's your attorney at in the process? Where's your engineer in the process? And you might check with the engineer. It's helped me on several projects to know if it's an engineer I work with, to comment, hey, where are they at in the process? To where I can tell my seller, they've done nothing.
Right.
We need to be worried about this, or they're getting near the end.
The other thing is you have to realize even national companies, just because it's a big national company doesn't mean they're doing their due diligence right.
Correct.
Perfect example is Lennar. I mean, can you think of a larger national builder that we have here, right? That's a huge one. Do you know what happened right up the road, which I can never remember the name, the elementary school and the community? We were building the condominiums of Baldwin Park, and everyone was saying, oh, the Navy base, oh my gosh, you don't want to buy there. That was an educational base. They didn't do any kind of nothing on there. It was just educational. Well, at the same time, Lennar bought this land. They built the elementary school there. They sold I can't remember the name of the community. I have to look it up for you guys. They did not do all the testing that they should have done. They built it all on top of active bombs.
Oh my God.
Odyssey Middle.
Thank you. Odyssey Middle. Yes. And I can't remember the name of the community. Those 12 people that closed, they will never get their money back. No one's going to buy that. I don't believe that their homeowner's insurance is going to help them on that one. Right. So what do? It's Lennar's fault. It was a lawsuit against Lennar because they did not do, well, it was a long time ago, but they did not do their due diligence when they purchased that land. They should have looked underneath the soil. They didn't.
They should have done some borings. They probably would have found, well, it might have been a tragedy if they'd done some borings, if they'd hit a bomb at their.
Yeah, but it would have been before they built it.
It would have been, yeah, they would have known.
They would have known.
They could have
Could you
walked
imagine
away.
had kids going to school there?
Uh,
Crazy.
And most of my borings are done, they mainly want to know the soil type. They want to make sure that the soil is stable, that there's not a lot of muck. Yeah, because that's an expensive thing to remove.
There's a lot of things that you don't think about. Element Builders is building a community out in Windermere. The lots are about, and they're probably built out now, they're about 1.5 million or something, and the homes are about another 2 million on top of that. And the builder, I looked at the builder's contracts. You know what's not included in there? The soil. They don't warranty the soil. And you know why they don't warranty the soil? Because the soil in many areas of Windermere, which I can tell you for true, does not percolate well.
Okay.
Do you guys know what that means?
Let the water come out.
So when the rain comes down so hard, when it perks well, it feeds through and it goes into the, the groundwater. But in many parts of Windermere and Winter Garden, it sits, it's like mucky. So it just sits on top, and that's why you get a lot of flooding and all that. And so what happens is could go into your pool area and you get this big flooding situation. So what that builder did is they don't warranty that. So they're not warranting the grading. They're not warranting if there's flooding in your backyard, because they never did the soil test, or maybe they did do the soil test and they don't want to say they did the soil test. We can't say, but you're buying a $3-4 million property and you could have problems with flooding, and the builder's not warranting that.
Certain soils just don't perk.
They don't.
Yeah, if you get the right clay, the clay, it will not.
Bronson's Landing does not perk. We pulled that thing 4 times. We had so many different engineers come out giving us different grading plans. There was nothing we could do about it. After the homeowners moved in, then it still pooled in the back and it was coming up to the pools. We still pulled everything out and regraded it again. That soil does not perk. It just doesn't.
But that's another thing. Say you're selling a residential lot and it's in the country, and you need to put a septic tank in.
Oh God.
They're going to do a percolation test, and that needs to be done under the due diligence, because you want to make sure that your person can put that dream home. You don't want them to go out and say, hey, this soil.
Why is my thing floating?
Yes.
I had a beautiful lawn and now I have a floating sewage tank.
But that's something that they need to do under their due diligence. They're building a home, and to make sure that they can build the home they want. Say they want a barn on the home, or say a shop, to where they can check to make sure that they can have those outbuildings if they want to, because certain zonings will not allow you to have an additional structure at all. And if you're in an HOA, which my lakefront lot I'm trying to sell, they denied the plans. The gentleman was wanting. Oh yeah, that's why we went back to active. It was a traditional neighborhood and he wanted to put a modern living house, and the HOA said no. So those are things on residential lots you need to, especially if it's in an HOA, you need to make sure what approvals they have to have from the HOA, and make sure that you've got enough time under your due diligence for your buyer to check that out.
That is to do like a casita.
You've got
Anything, yeah.
Anything.
Casita, anything, whatever they're building.
because you don't want the buyer to buy, say, this 1 acre lot, and say he collects cars, and he's wanting to put a little shop building out back. They bought it, they built their house, he's ready to start the shop, and the county says, you can't do that. He's going to be so upset with you. So even though it was his job to check it, you need to let your client know, well, if you're wanting to, please check. It only takes a few minutes. I prefer to email them. That way I've got a written trail of what our conversation was. Or if I go to the city of St. Cloud, especially the city of St. Cloud, if you guys ever get to deal with them, take a copy of the parcel and have them write on there what is allowable and sign it.
Yeah, they change their minds.
Yes, they do.
They're horrible.
Well, I say they have
St.
amnesia.
Cloud.
Yeah. You saw us when, and we said, what? Well, hold on. I brought this piece of paper. You said, and here's
That's a
so-and-so
great
said,
idea.
take your parcel with you. They're the only one you're going to need to do that with.
Yeah, Orange County, you'll be online for forever,
Yeah.
but they're at least, they stick to whatever they
Yeah.
say. They're not very helpful either, but they stick to whatever they say. And they never answer their phones, but they will stick.
They
to
will
it,
stick to what they
Yeah.
say.
Now, I did bring up, just as you see, this is the purchase land contract. And you see right here, the due diligence period. The buyer will have a buyer's expense. It says if left like 30 days. Now, that would be for probably a phase 1, right? But if
phase
you
one.
need to do anything beyond that, you're going to need more than 30 days. And, as Susan has shared with you, it is very usual, could go up to 180, not a
It's-
problem. That is very usual and customary, depending on the type of land, what you're buying. If you're buying one parcel, no.
Yeah.
Right? But if you're buying multiple parcels, if it's for development, it's going to be much more than 30 days. I can guarantee you that. Also, if you're buying multiple parcels for a developer, I would probably say I would not use a land contract. I would get an attorney. You would do probably a letter of intent
E-
and then have the attorney draw up the actual
That
contract.
I'm looking one like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because
I'm
that's
trying
a
to draw
lot.
everything
Yeah. I mean,
didn't put my head.
Yeah, the letter of intent is important to kind of work through what you're thinking, what the terms would look like. Once they determine, okay, these terms would be agreeable, great. Now the attorneys will draw up the contracts based upon those terms that would be agreeable. Okay, so, but here, if you happen to use a land contract, notice that, and this is the language that's taken in there as is contract. If after the effective date in the buyer's sole and absolute discretion, we recognize that from the as is contract, don't we? They get to determine whether the property is suitable for their intended use. So essentially, this is a cancel for any reason clause. It is the exact same thing. Now they go in and they say the buyer may conduct a phase 1, and then what test that would be is, and then they can determine that the property is suitable for engineering, architectural, environmental, zoning. So they just list every possible thing. But the reality is, guys, this is a cancel for any reason clause. Your due diligence time is the time to get any possible test you want done. So it doesn't really matter whatever test you want done. If you do anything to the property, you have to fix it, just like a
Yes.
normal situation. But this is the time, and it's all in here. If there's any losses, if you've changed anything, you have to harm, if you've caused any problems, you have to fix it. Obviously, the seller has to give you consent to enter the property, blah, 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 the same thing. And then the buyer may cancel anytime within that 30, 60, 90, whatever you wrote days, in writing that the property is not suitable. If they give nothing, they've accepted the property. They have waived that contingency, right? Are we good with that? Yes.
Who do you talk to, the engineer or the lawyer, to determine which of these you need to?
You don't
pursue?
talk to anybody.
No, I'm not
You
saying me.
recommend to your customers,
Yeah.
depending
I'm
on
saying
what
who
it
do they
is.
talk to determine whether they need a phase 1 or whether they need a.
It depends on what they're doing. Usually the builder, like if they are working with the builder should have engineers, should
Mhm.
know, and the engineers would know if they need a phase 1 or phase 2, depending on what they're doing. If they're building one home, well, I don't see possible why they need a phase 2.
No, they
But if they're
shouldn't.
building a community, very well possible, they may need to look for species. I mean, there may be things depending on where it's located that they may be concerned there is something below the soil, or, it just depends on where it is, what the property was used for prior. That's usually what determines how deep you have to go into the due diligence process and what they're going to be building there. If you're building a single family home, right? This is very simple. If you're building condos that is all concrete, let me tell you, we did, and all the interior flooring is concrete. You know how large those footers are? So you have to go down really deep. You would have to look into the soil to see how far you could even go, right? So that would require further testing just because of how the product type you're going to build there. So there's a lot of variables that would determine what type and how deep the testing would need to be.
I always consider my main job is reminding them of when their due diligence is up
Mhm.
on a regular basis, to where they don't miss getting some kind of testing that they want to do. At least that's me personally. It's
Yeah.
like,
No,
you know,
absolutely. Listen, I'm going to tell you, especially for having worked for the builder and having to be in on all the land meetings and all the meetings with the construction team and there are so many things you don't know. I learn something crazy new every day. And I know today there's so much more I don't know. It's scary. So because of that, I'm going to tell you, that's when you just have to make sure. The scariest thing is dealing with a would-be investor. Somebody who has money, who wants to develop, who's never developed before. Because they're going to try to put you in the hot seat, making you responsible for everything. Those are the ones you got to be careful of. So the most important thing is to have a team. Have a Joe
Team.
Thacker. Have somebody ready to say, because I did so much work in South Florida, which I hated, I had my attorney, I had my zoning attorney, I had my whole team. So I just didn't even say anything. I said, here they are. You don't talk to me about this.
and that's
I just
basically
give
what
you
I do.
them.
Here's the numbers.
Yeah.
You reach out to them, and I might check with them every so often to
Of
say, hey,
course.
are they on track?
Yeah, we can talk to them and find out the good. You always want to know that.
Yeah.
But you don't want to ever give the impression to the would-be first-time developer that you're responsible for that.
No.
especially if they're from another country.
Mhm.
They're the worst, right, Carol? We know that. They all think that we're responsible, Gladys, for everything, right?
Mm-hmm.
And if they can make us responsible for everything, they'll happily do so. Because trust me, I dealt with a lot of internationals. And so that's the ones you got to be really, really careful of. Don't take the monkey on your back. Don't do it. Hand it to the right team of people that it's their job, not yours.
I agree 100%.
Who has some questions? We could go through some contracts, but before we do, I'm going to stop this for a second. Who has some questions for our amazing expert? I see, Victoria, you have something, and I don't know what FLU is. I can't, maybe I'm reading it wrong. So unmute yourselves, guys, and ask our expert.
Thank you, Carrie, and thank you, Susan, for useful information. It's interesting to hear that. So my question is for future land use. Is that for sure, or could be changed anytime? So when we present to the client, is that for sure going to be rezoned that time on the future land use?
It should be, because they are guided under the comprehensive land plan. Each county has its own land plan that is been filed with the state of Florida, where they have different developments are going, the density. So nothing is 100% at all. That's part of what they need to do during their due diligence. They need to get with the zoning department, show exactly what they're wanting to do, and make their application, go before the zoning board, have the zoning board approve it, and then they have to go before the commission and have the commission approve it. Then it's set in stone. It is mainly, it's easier if the future land use is what you're wanting to do. If, say, you're on a piece of property and it's zoned AC and the future land use is low density residential, and you're wanting to put in a car dealership.
Yeah.
That's going to be really hard to get approved, where you could be able to get the density for homes fairly easy, but the county is going to want to sign off on it. Nothing is ever in stone until the commission says yes, and then it's in stone.
Thank you. And what's the density based on?
The density is set by the state. The different, each county has different densities. Like I'm in Osceola County. So in Osceola County, the city of St. Cloud, low density residential is 4 to the acre, but the county is up to 8 to the acre. So it depends on what municipality you're dealing with, is what their density is. Most municipalities you can look up on, except St. Cloud's a little more difficult to look up. But most of them you can look up on the website, and they'll have a chart of they'll have a chart similar to this that will tell you what the designation is and how many units, what your setbacks need to be.
Yeah, and one more thing, the county, do they sell the land to developers? Or who decides that?
A supplemental land.
The county does. Yes, the county does. One of my dearest friends is actually in charge of doing that for Osceola County. And right now they've got a warehouse that they have got a request for proposal on. And you can register. If you're interested, you can go on different websites and register on their vendor list to get information of stuff coming up.
Okay, great. Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
I would tell you in Orange County too, in the areas of, oh gosh, it just went out of my head, the improvement zones, they're called, the area like by SeaWorld. Raj, you know what they are. The areas that they're trying to re-improve their opportunity zones. Thank you. So a lot of times you could go to the county and you could put in different proposals on the opportunity zones. And even sometimes people do that with grants, depending on what your project is. If you're doing something, for example, for affordable housing and you're trying to put it in with an opportunity zone, you may have an opportunity there to create something. But there, I think you probably get better luck in Orange County because we don't have a ton of surplus land. But in Osceola, they do have a lot of surplus.
Yes, just you can register on their website, and they'll send you notice of when things are. They'll send you bid notices of when things are coming up.
I think Orange County is one of the hardest to work with
They
on
are.
any kind of zoning.
They are.
Osceola, Polk, and any other is better for sure.
Well, Windermere is a nightmare because they're a tiny little city of, and they're terrible. So luckily we're not dealing with them.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Thank you.
I also have to say too, another interesting thing, when you're dealing with these little small counties and cities, and to your point, it was Windermere, for example, is part of Horizon West, right? So you have Windermere, Winter Garden, and that's part of a master plan that was very strictly set, and it was a great master plan. And then the market crashed, as we all know, right? 07.
Mhm.
And guess what happened to that master plan? It was changed. It did not. There was supposed to be no rentals. Does anybody see rentals in Windermere? Yeah, because they're there now. And that happened because Lakeside, which was an Ashton Woods community, had taken all these reservations. Supposedly they had 2,500 people. Yeah, right. Anyway, the market turned. They only closed 32 people, the poor people who bought their homes. They bought condos, 3-bedroom, that they were selling them. They bought them about $350. Now they couldn't sell them at all. And of course, now nobody could buy because there wasn't enough occupancy in the building. So you couldn't get a loan in the building. It was a big mess. So what ended up happening was the developer had all these. And so they rented them out themselves, i.e. what happened? Rentals. And then it became grandfathered in, and now suddenly you have rentals popping into the plan. But there were not rentals in that master plan. So to your point, Victoria, yeah, do things change even though it was
They could
not part of
change.
that comprehensive plan? Absolutely. Another thing that changed, which was a huge thing about the comprehensive plan, is anybody aware of the Windermere High School situation? That was a huge part of that was not part of that comprehensive plan. That was not supposed to be where it's at today. That was a lawsuit between the city of Windermere and the county. And that lawsuit, part of that adjustment to how they agreed upon it is why the actual field is down the road, which is ridiculous. And poor kids have been hit by cars because it's down the road. Not thinking about the children, thinking about what? The field lights, that's what people were fighting about. And now they have the band in their backyard. So, but, but the point is, to your point, these things are written in stone and then things change all the time.
Things change, and you really, it takes about 120 to 180 days to get something through zoning in Osceola County. So give yourself the time for due diligence if you need it.
The good news is that things happen here during the day. Because I'll tell you, when I lived in New Jersey in Edgewater along the water, suddenly things got passed in the middle of the night. So we're happy at least things happen by day here. Zoning's a little better here.
And we do have a lot of subdivisions coming in Osceola County that people don't realize, old DRIs that are been setting out there, which a DRI is anything over 1,000 homes. And there's a huge amount of development coming. So if somebody's wanting to live, say, in the country and have their horses, they need to take a look at the maps to see what's coming.
Very exciting. Does anybody else? Oh, go ahead, Emily.
So if you're actually the listing agent for land, in which situations would you have to do any due diligence prior to listing?
Usually I check and verify the zoning is the first thing I do, is verify the zoning. I, just because I developed land most of my life, cleared land, put in roads, I walk the property where I have an idea of what's wet and what's not. I can't say I'm an expert, but I do it for myself to where I know if somebody brings me an offer in and they say, oh, half of it's wet. And I can say, are we looking at the same piece of property? I do it strictly for myself. It's for no other reason. And that's about all I do when I I verify the zoning, because that is in Osceola County, that's the biggest thing. And I just take a walk and I look and see, and I make sure, because it will tell you on Osceola County's property appraisers what they have listed as wetlands. They do have it broke down on our property appraisers website. So it's real easy. If say you've got a 100-acre parcel, the county might have 9.8 acres listed as wetlands. And so they do some of the work for you. You just have to go and look it up.
Have you ever found any of that to be inaccurate?
Occasionally, yes.
And what is the process if you need to get that changed?
It's very difficult.
I was
You're
gonna
gonna,
say.
you're gonna need, you're
Because
gonna
now you're
need,
dealing with FEMA, right?
you're gonna have to deal with FEMA. You're gonna need to have it deal with the surveyor, Johnson's Engineering. This is a free plug for you, Turner. Anyway, is one of the oldest surveyors in Osceola County, and they're wonderful to work with if you have to work with elevation certificates. And that's a whole, I'm sorry, Carrie, I'm getting off topic. That's a
No,
whole
no.
nother
Liable.
thing to
Mhm.
worry about.
And the property, like we called from KC. was
Yeah.
24 acres, but 10
We're
wet
wet,
land,
but that was really wet.
really wet.
That, yeah, we could see the water.
And sometimes you can tell by the vegetation. Most people think if they see cypress trees, it's wet. That's not necessarily true. Red
Mhm.
maples are an indication of what property. Bay trees are an indication of what
Mhm.
property. It's, but it's not you to judge. But when you're listing a property, it's kind of good to have in your head
Mhm.
what you're working with, to where when somebody comes back with a contract and you have an idea of what the property is.
So I'm gonna ask you a question.
I'm
If
sorry.
someone calls you and they said, Susan, I want to buy some land, I want to build some homes, what are some of the questions that you want to know right off the top of your head?
First thing I'm going to ask them is, how many homes do you want to build in the area? What do you want to be close to? Because some places, I just put a piece of property up for sale. Zoning is R3, which is a higher density. You can do duplexes in a small multifamily.
R3.
Yep,
R3.
R3. One of the most important things, the people have been looking at, how close is it to a bus stop? How close is it to a workforce area?
Mhm.
That's extremely important. So when someone calls you looking for land, they're going to want to know what's nearby. They might want to be within, I have people ask me, how close is it to Publix?
Mhm.
Really, how close is it to Publix? How close is it to schools? How close is it to workforce? Because workforce for some people is very important because they want to know who is going to be occupying the houses.
And how often do they ask you, do they come to you and say, I want to build at this price per home, an average, and where do you recommend the best place for me to build?
It happens occasionally. It's normally with the larger, more savvy builders. I am working with D.R. Horton on one that we're closing in January. Yeah, January, we close on that one. And it is a mixed use zoning, which is a different designation. Part of the property is commercial and part of it is residential. Mixed use zoning is different in Osceola County than it is in the city of St. Cloud. City of St. Cloud mixed use zoning is housing types, where in the county it is commercial and housing.
And you got that deal put together from your contacts that you have.
From my
correct?
contacts, the first thing I did when they reached out to me to want to buy it, I reached right out to Joe Thacker and said, I've got somebody that is interested in this property. The property owner they consider me a daughter. And I told them we need to assemble a team because it is a large sale. So I have helped them. They hired Joe Thacker, who they felt very comfortable with. And we hired a CPA to help them because we're going to be doing some 1031 exchanges at the end of the day.
Can you give us a range of the dollar amount?
It's 7 million on that one. And we're purchasing, the business they're moving to is $1.7 million.
So this is just through her contacts.
Yes. And if anybody tells you ninja selling does not work, I met with a nice young man. He bought me lunch last week. Doesn't work for us, but he looked at a piece of property. He's 26 years old. Very sweet. I gave him a copy of the book because he goes, how do you market? I said, you don't market. You keep in constant contact with people. You turn your family into a marketing machine, which is how I get most of my business. Because I swear my dad and my mother can hear someone say, I'm going to sell from 2 miles out. but people have to know that you're not. There's a book I read years ago called The Secret Agent. Have you read? Yeah. People have to know you're in the business, and you have to be in constant contact. One of my sellers that I work with, he was considering doing something that I'd done. I sent him a note last week. I was thinking of it. Are you still considering it? And gave him some tips. And if you need me, call me. I'll be glad to go over this with you. You can't be sold and done because then you're a used car salesman. And I'm not putting down used car salesmen, but that's all we have to sell is relationships, our relationships and our knowledge. We have nothing else. And if you don't keep up your relationships,
that's right. You're just giving away your knowledge.
You're just giving away your knowledge. And I love it when I go to lunch with the old guys that are my dad's friends. I have several of them come up, do you ever need to sell anything? Like the gentleman that owns the car dealership in town. I've known him all my life. Stands
One
up,
day
if you
he'll be
need
your
somebody,
Yeah,
call
there you
Susan.
go.
And that's what you want to have people. You want to have those testimonials.
Yeah.
That's how I get in. I buy no leads.
Mm-hmm.
I don't buy any leads. All of my business is word of mouth, all of it, relationships.
I have a quick question, Susan.
Yeah.
Do you know anything about Disney that purchased a 1,000-acre Kingsland Ranch in Osceola, right behind Celebration,
No, I don't know that.
next to Brown's property off of Ponciana and Intersection City?
The Browns were considering selling. I don't know if HE, if they went ahead and did that or not. But his ex-wife works for a competing realty company.
Yes, no, I know. I was involved actually on the sales side with Robert Kingsland, who actually built Ponciana and part of 192. He was the very first one who Disney ever bought property from. Walt Disney used to sit in his truck and drove all over town. And Robert Kingsland sold over 1,000 acre, but I was at one point instrumental. I brought some buyers to them. But I know Disney, after we walked away from contract, Disney came in and scooped up that property on a heartbeat. It was 1,000-acre Kingsland Ranch right in between 192 and Intersection, behind Magic Development. So I guess my question was, since you sat on county, if you happen to know what Disney is planning, if they have already started master planning over there, or
Well, Disney runs underneath Reedy Creek, and they get to do their own thing. They would have bought it, and they would have brought it under the umbrella of Reedy Creek, so the county would not know what they were doing. But thanks to our governor, go Ron, Reedy Creek is being dissolved.
Yes, kind of, maybe not yet, right?
Not yet, but
that's still up for debate. Yeah.
The big one we have coming in the county is the Rhodey family has sold 14,000 acres near 60. And if you ever have to drive 60, you will pray a lot because it's a horrible. I have 2 clients that I'm working with that live off 60, and it is a terrible road to be on. There's an accident every time I go. But that's coming in Osceola County out near Yeehaw. 14,000 acres. It's going to be, gosh, what did Jim say it was going to be? I know part of it is going to be a 55 plus, but I don't think all of it is. It's being brought down in phases.
And
Gotcha.
One developer, and he's
One
going to do
developer.
multiple builders, kind of a thing.
Multiple, yes. It's going to be, but that ranch is huge. I mean, it's 2 miles long. That ranch is.
Wow.
Yeah. Do you know anything about properties around Sunrail that Osceola owns county?
They did recently sell to a developer that I am working with on this property I just listed.
Oh, interesting. How big is the parcel?
I'd have to pull it, but there are negotiations. It's going to be affordable housing.
Wow.
Okay. It's right by Sunrail?
It's right by Sunrail.
Okay, interesting. Also, because I'm also working with someone who won the bid from county for.
The one who won the bid for the county is an old family friend.
Okay.
And they're doing it. Domingo is doing that project. It's going to be real interesting to see it done.
Very nice.
It's a great job. He does a great job at developing properties.
And
Okay. Is there?
I'm sorry.
no,
Is there going to be any opportunities around there for land from the county?
You know, I'd have to ask Carol. I don't think so. The only parcels I know that they are trying to do anything with is this warehouse parcel that they've got, and why they went into the warehouse business, I have no idea. Dealing with tenants. To me, it's like government doesn't belong in that business. I don't know of any other surplus property that they have coming up that they're wanting to do more affordable housing. I can reach out to Carol and ask her, and she'll tell me what's legally public. She'll tell me.
Yeah.
And just so you guys know, part of my Orange County District 12 Board of Directors, blah, 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 whatever. I did find out and for those of you who have not been watching, with the, what's it called? The tri-rail, the one that's coming from Miami all the way, the what's it called, Brightline.
That's so
Brightline
cool.
will
Yeah.
be open this time next year. It will
No
be
way. It's
open.
gonna be
Yes,
huge.
it will be open next year, and they're going to add some new connectors to it. So obviously we'll be at the terminal in, of course, the airport, but they're also looking at, iDrive will have a terminal. They're also putting a terminal on, it was another.
They tried Disney, right? They declined.
Yeah, Disney declined. There's another
Disney's
one
closed.
on I-4, kind of off by the outlet mall area-ish. And then it's going out to Tampa. So it's gonna have that, and
I
that
think goes
entire
to
thing.
Melbourne as well.
I don't know if that part will be open by next
Oh,
year
no,
this
by
time.
next week, no, but
Yeah,
it will,
but that's where they're planning on going, absolutely.
because I had plans.
Carrie,
Huh?
Do they have already some locations?
Yes.
For iDrive and for
Yes.
other areas?
Yes, they have, as a matter of
do you-
fact, if you go to Brightline's website, they actually
Yeah.
have them already located. It's on a map. hmm
Interesting, okay.
Yep, it's,
Because last time I
announced.
checked, they didn't have that thing.
I know, yeah, she announced it actually at the meeting that I was on. Mhm.
That's
Nice.
unbelievable.
Thank you.
Yep.
I
And
see the
Terminal
tracks in
C, you
Cocoa
all
with the
saw my
fingers.
post, maybe not on
That's in
Facebook. It,
Miami.
as of last week, whenever I posted it, it was 31 days for Terminal C to open. So Terminal C will be open, so in
Crazy.
20 days or whatever, I can't do the math.
We
but
should do
whatever.
We should do an
23
office
days,
field
whatever.
trip.
Yes.
Yes.
So,
Well,
know,
I'm sorry, no, go ahead. I was just saying, we had a sneak peek last year when they finished the Terminal C.
is it
So I
nice?
was in a grand party, yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, well, it should also help alleviate a lot of that traffic, because the way
Yes,
they realized by studying traffic patterns, which they should have done when they built MCO, the way that the turn and then goes up, that is the worst part for the bottleneck. And that's just the logistics of how the actual radius of the turn and going up the hill apparently is what makes the bottleneck. So they have alleviated that with the Terminal C. And then of course, by spreading out the amount of traffic, it should help alleviate. But of course, it's bringing in another 15 million travelers. So I will see about that, but we are the third largest airport with considering the amount of traffic. Actual, that's amazing. So we get a lot of travel here
I
through
had no
MCO.
idea that we
I
were
didn't know
there.
we were that big either, because honestly, I've done a lot of travel lately, and I'm gonna do some more, guys, on that job. But I've been through some big airports. I mean, our airport is big, but it didn't seem that big.
Yeah.
But we get more people through our airport than it. But you know, you feel it when you go to pick people up or drop off, right?
Yeah.
Traffic.
It's always
So,
crazy.
but that is exciting stuff. We have a lot more coming too. So I mean, they have a lot of things planned. So that's really exciting stuff. But between that and the Brightline, I think we've got some really neat. Also, the economic growth that we have coming here to Orlando, there's some huge. They did not announce that company. I'm still waiting to hear the fourth largest company that's coming to Orlando, but there's some more large companies that have been deciding to move their company headquarters here. So you're going to see over the next year a lot more growth coming to this area, which I thought was really exciting as well.
That is exciting.
Yeah, so as you know, the economy in other parts of the world you may see some unemployment in the rise, and we may see some of that here, but having these companies move here will help obviously alleviate that issue. So that's really exciting. So-
Brightline is gonna help too.
Oh yeah,
A lot
Brightline
of
will
people
totally
come
help.
To work every day.
Yeah, it's going to be amazing. And they have also, if you go onto the Brightline's website, you can actually, because people are using it already, going to West Palm Beach down to Miami, and they have two, what do they call it? Just for lack of better words, like middle class and high class. There's no low class, right? So they call it like first class and superior class or something. I don't remember what they call it, but anyway, it looks really nice.
The
So
station in Miami is amazing.
yeah, well,
It's
it's part of
amazing.
Brickell, so
Yeah,
That-
everything around now is super high value.
Yeah.
It was like nobody wanted to buy it.
yeah,
Now
I
everybody
remember
wants to
when
be
they
there
were
because
planning
it's
it.
wow.
Yeah, it's
And it's
so
super nice.
awesome. Yeah. And it's just going to get that much better because people now can travel so easily, which will be great. And hopefully that'll alleviate some of that awful traffic on the turnpike in 95, because 95 is a mess. Who
I
wants
can't
to
wait
go
for
on
that.
95 is a zoo.
Oh,
Yeah,
gosh,
I
nobody
can't
wants to
wait
get on
because
that.
you can go like working, like
Yeah.
train, and then you should run.
Exactly. So much better. That's one thing that I have to say after like going to Boston and spending time there reminds me of New York. I mean, one thing that we have in those northern cities is a lot better infrastructure for travel, for local travel, like the subways, and maybe not the nice, although the Boston subways is very nice. But here, what do we have? You know, the light rail, I mean, the tri-rail, nobody takes that thing, right?
Yeah,
Nothing.
nobody takes it.
But Brightline did say that they will also incorporate and work with the tri-rail system. So that's another thing in the future plans. So that'll be good too.
That'll be good.
So I think this is a great plus for where we're moving. So that's a good thing too. Well, I cannot thank you enough, Miss Susan Asher, our amazing expert. So thank you all for joining. It was great. And look forward to seeing you on Monday's training. So have a great rest of your week, everybody. Bye.
Thank you.